On this week's episode, we discuss LeBron's much anticipated return. Can Luka, LeBron, and Reaves all coexist? And what will this Lakers rotation possibly look like now that everybody's back healthy? What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Matter of Stats podcast. Anthony with you once again. Happy to be here. Hope you guys are too. What a week for the Lakers. We'll jump into it. We're going to talk about LeBron's return. We're going to talk about this trio, the LeBron, Luka, Reaves dynamic. Is that sustainable? Can it work? What does it look like if it works? And what's this Laker rotation going to look like now that everybody's back, right? We've already seen a few, small tweaks here over these last couple of games, but now that LeBron's back in the fold and even Gabe Vincent, the rotation's going to look a little different. It already has. We're going to jump into all of that. But first, of course, we'd like to remind all our valued listeners to please check out the Matter of Stats podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. And please do not forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out. So, all right. Kind of a weird week, for the Lakers. Only one game on the actual schedule. The home game against the Utah Jazz, which featured the much anticipated return of one LeBron James. And then the Lakers with several days off before they face the Utah Jazz again. This time in Utah. But, Lakers came into the week 10-4, similar to the way they started last year, right? They were also 10-4 last year. This year, I don't know. I kind of get the feeling that this 10-4 start feels a little different than last year's 10-4 start. I don't know. It just, last year kind of felt like overachieving. This year, almost in a sense, feels underachieving, right? Because the Lakers had a few kind of bad losses. Couple losses they shouldn't have had, maybe. But nonetheless, off to the same start before they faced the Jazz, which was a good home win. I mean, they scored 140 points, give up 126. So the defense still a problem. But the focus on that game, of course, wasn't the lack of defense or the 140 points of offense. It was the return of LeBron James after starting the season. On the injured list, so to speak. He made his debut Tuesday night at home against the Jazz. Played a fair amount of minutes, almost 30 minutes in the game. And I think played relatively well considering there's some rust. He's also, pushing 41 years of age. So the ramp up time, speed probably takes time to get going. I know he talked about just kind of his lungs feeling a little, out of breath. Right. Trying to, catch up to that level of comfort and athleticism. But a solid game. Like I said, almost 30 minutes, 11 points, 12 assists. There was a stretch, I think, early in the fourth quarter where he basically assisted on, I think, 6 or 7 straight baskets. So he was really being used heavily as a facilitator, getting everybody involved, picking and choosing his spots. Wasn't super aggressive on offense, which I think you can expect given the time off and perhaps the rust. But I think also he's been watching and observing the way this team's been playing without him. And he sees what Luka's doing. He sees what Reaves is doing. And I don't think LeBron's going to come in and just be like, okay, well, I'm LeBron, I'm the king, back up and let me take my 25 shots and score my 40 points because I can. I think there'll be times where he will have to score, obviously, for this team. There'll be times where he'll have to rebound. There'll be times where he'll have to defend. And there'll be times where he'll have to facilitate. And I thought he did a really good job of that in the game against Utah. He really was looking to get everybody involved. He was really looking to play make and wasn't forcing things, which I think is probably something that a lot of Laker fans, maybe take issue with from time to time, right? Maybe he tries to do too much because of who he is and because of what he's capable of doing. Maybe sometimes taking away from others when it's not needed. And I know it was just the Jazz, of course, but I thought that they really meshed well collectively as a team, inserting LeBron. I know there's some trepidation of when he was going to be thrown back in, what was that going to look like? What was that going to do to the cohesiveness that we've seen so far and the level of play that we've seen from some of these guys like Reaves, like Rui? Was it going to hinder or take away from their ability to be as effective as they have been so far early on in the season? But I didn't see any of that. I thought it was relatively smooth inserting him into the lineup. I thought that the three of them really played well off of each other, especially at times. They were kind of funneling things through LeBron, through Luka, through Reaves, off ball, working off of screens, good spacing, good cutting. So I think that the three of them really looked good together. But it was nice to see LeBron back. I think that he definitely makes the team better. I know that not every Laker fan loves LeBron. We know that. We have some people that work on this show that have different opinions about LeBron. But I definitely think that the team is better with him than without him. In the short term here, obviously he's 41 years old. Who knows how much longer he's going to be around or in a Laker uniform. But I think that he does make the team better, at least right now, especially the way this team is currently constructed with some of the lack of defense and size and depth and athleticism on this roster. But thought he looked good, was impressed, got the W. Now we'll see, what happens moving forward. With that in mind, of course, I mentioned the synergy of inserting LeBron and how he will work with Luka and Reaves. In LeBron's absence, we've obviously seen Luka and Reaves play very well together as a dynamic duo. We've seen the chemistry that they've played with, and we've seen sort of the jovial chemistry and bond that they've kind of formed here, even off the court, right? They definitely joke around with each other. So their chemistry has been really good so far this season on and off the court. So the insertion of LeBron, how was that going to work now that you're taking the duo into a tripod, so to speak? Was that balance still going to be as good with three as it was with two? And small sample size, of course, just one game. But the three of them, I thought, really played well together when they were all on the floor at times. I thought that they worked off of each other in different ways often. We talked about LeBron being a facilitator, but we also saw him sort of running, getting into the post on some transition plays where Luka got him the ball. We saw Reaves playing off the ball, cutting a lot through LeBron and Luka's rotations and visions, creating open looks. And we still saw Luka being allowed to do, his thing, work the two-man game, work the pick and roll with DeAndre Ayton, and even with LeBron. There were some nice sets where they ran high screen and roll Luka and LeBron, and that has the potential to be really dangerous because you're going to create major mismatches if you're going to run pick and roll with LeBron and Luka. And you're going to force that switch, you're really making the defense pick your poison, because are they going to switch that person onto Luka and risk getting cooked top of the key off the dribble, step back three? Or are they going to switch, maybe put that smaller guy on LeBron, watch him work elbow, top of the key, back him down on the post? Not only will he score, but then it creates off-ball action for Reaves, right? So there's going to be lots of opportunities and things and wrinkles that I think you'll see this coaching staff and JJ insert with the three of them playing, I think, at a higher level right now than even we saw last year. Last year, obviously, the three of them played together, and for the most part, it was relatively successful. There weren't any major issues with the three of them on the court at the same time, other than maybe some defensive lapses. But I think that you're going to get a higher level for lots of reasons. One, Reaves and Luka are simply playing a little better than they were last year. Luka's in better shape physically, obviously, than he was last year. I think LeBron's going to have less to do. He's going to have to shoulder less of the load, physically too, than he did last year. But I think when you put all of them together, and the fact that now they've had a full training camp, off season, preseason together, despite LeBron's injury to start the year, you're going to get a lot more cohesiveness, I think. And I think the coaching staff is going to be able to layer in a lot more action with the three of them on the court at one time than they were able to do last year. Because remember, they kind of made it up on the fly last year. Nobody knew Luka was coming. Nobody knew that trade was going down. It happened, second half of the season. So everything they kind of created and put together with the three of them on the court was literally spur of the moment, right? There was no pre-planning that this was going to happen. So they created a lot of that stuff on the fly. So I think now that everything is set in stone, so to speak, and you know what you're dealing with, and everybody's had the time to work together, and the coaching staff has had time to build out the sets and the plays and the foundation and the elements of what they want to do on the court, I think all of that coupled with improved play and better shape of Luka, you're going to see a much, I think, more efficient and effective trio than we saw last year. And hopefully the idea is right that it's going to trickle down to everybody else. DeAndre Ayton's played well. I don't think it's going to, worsen his game to have LeBron out there too. Guys like Laravia and Smart and some of the role players, I think, obviously will also benefit from the improved offseason, having everybody together for, a full camp. And I think that that's going to translate very well on the offensive end. The question obviously is always going to be on the defensive end, with or without LeBron, right? This team doesn't defend. We talked about 140 points against Utah. That's great. 126 points given up against Utah. That's not great. So the real challenge, I think, for the coaching staff is really going to be, can they make outside shots? Can they defend? This team isn't athletic. There's no high-level defenders. LeBron, even at his age, still might be a very good defender, or at least, an average to above average defender, but he's 41 years old. So he's not a high-level elite defender. Doesn't have the athleticism anymore, like some of these younger wing players that are, flying all over the place and playing the perimeter. So that's going to be the challenge, I think, with this team overall, and especially, with the three on the court at one time. So, but one game, so far so good, right? We'll see. Let's see game 2 against Utah. Maybe they can hold them under 126 points this time. So that being said, LeBron's return, the tripod, the rotations, what's it going to look like now? Gabe's back, LeBron's back. You got a fully healthy roster. What does that mean for the Lakers rotation, at least in the short term as we move forward? Well, we got, a little taste of that even in the last couple of games before LeBron returned and before Gabe returned. The rotation shifted just a little bit. And I think the most noticeable change, obviously, over these last couple games is Vando. Vando's somebody that has been obviously a regular part of the rotation in his time with the Lakers, was a starter, right, at some points in time. He's seemed to be the biggest, change or casualty, if you will, with the latest rotations, especially with LeBron and Gabe back. Vando didn't play much a couple of games ago. He hasn't played much in the last 2 games. He didn't play much against the Jazz. And I think you're seeing, at least in the short term, maybe he might be somebody that's now on the outside looking in a little bit because of the position that he plays, right? So LeBron kind of, on paper fills that position. And he doesn't bring much offensively. He obviously still is one of the better defensive players on this team, even if it's by default. But with Laravia and Ayton as new additions, that creates a domino effect, right? Something comes in, something has to go out. Now you bring LeBron and Gabe back. that now takes away from the rest of the roster. And I think so far the immediate casualty or biggest noticeable change has been Vando, who's kind of fallen out of the rotation a bit. But it is going to be interesting to see how it affects the minutes of, say, Smart and Laravia, who have played heavier minutes in the absence of some of these guys and have played very well at times in the absence of some of these guys. So they're still in the rotation. They're still getting their minutes, but it is going to be interesting to see as we move forward how their minutes fluctuate. Because if Vando's out of the rotation, Connect is seemingly, wasn't a mainstay of the rotation anyways, but now he's completely out of the rotation. You take guys like Bronny and Smith Jr. and those type of guys now, totally out of the rotation. And you still have to sprinkle in minutes for Hayes and, Rui, and Gabe now. So it's going to be interesting to see, I think, particularly how Laravia and Smart's roles and minutes fluctuate or are determined as we continue to move forward, because they've played really well and they're obviously going to be key parts of this team. Smart with his defensive tenacity and experience, and Laravia with his shooting ability, his size, and he is somewhat athletic. He's one of the more athletic players on this team. So it's going to be interesting to see how their roles and minutes fluctuate. But I think it's interesting that at least to start, Vando's kind of fallen out of this rotation, at least in the short term, given the lack of defense this team and lack of athleticism this team needs or doesn't have at times. So it's interesting that Vando's been the guy, at least so far in this short window, to be out of the rotation. But LeBron's going to get his minutes. Everyone else has to get their minutes. So it's going to be interesting to see how the coaching staff handles it moving forward. And then hopefully, Rob, weekly plea, baby. Hopefully Rob makes a couple moves. Maybe Vando, Cleva, maybe they go to greener pastures, and Rob goes and gets us something that will help this team defensively and on the athletic side of things. But we'll see. Every week, I'm still gonna give my little plea, my little shout out. Come on, Rob. This team's right there, 11-4. They're top 4 in the West. I think they're in the upper tier. They're not on the OKC level. I think Denver's still really good and Houston's really good, but the Lakers are right there. I think they're better than Golden State and the Clippers and the T-Wolves and some of the next tier of Western Conference foes. But they're right there. They're close. They're good offensively. They're definitely good offensively. But defense is going to be the Achilles heel of this team. And, I don't think you're going to find it on this current roster as it's currently constructed. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. See what happens next week. And as always, you know where to find us. You know where to find that information. You know where to find that Laker content. Come right back here. The Matter of Stats podcast. Subscribe. And we'll keep bringing you good content every single week. And we'll see you next week.
Matter of Stats podcast.